You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. We've got a nice little Sunday news wrap-up for you guys. I hope you all had a beautiful weekend, wonderful time resting with your families, your loved ones, your pets. Everything about today is screaming victory because we have the news media awash in reports about the corruption of the former administration, about the vindication of President Trump. But first of all, I wanted to get into this tweet here from my friend Martin Geddes. He says, the converse of don't feed the trolls is don't troll the feeds. Whilst it may be fun to bait those who have lost their way, it's a bit like abusing a pet because you've got power over it. The unkindness is ultimately to yourself since it erodes your capacity for empathy and care. I think this is a great message, and I think that it encapsulates the way that I myself try to behave when I'm on social media. I've seen a lot of vicious attacks. I feel like Twitter especially, with the veil of anonymity, it kind of allows people to just do and say whatever they want. It's one thing to call out corruption, and it's another thing to attack people viciously when there's really nothing they can do about it. So, just something to think about. Be kind to each other, be kind to the people who haven't gotten where we are yet, and never forget that we're all children of God. No matter what we've done, people can still repent. All right, real quick before we get into the news, I have a brief word from my sponsor. One man has the guts to speak the truth on America's secrets that are hiding in plain sight. You've probably heard of him. Best-selling author Doug Casey. He's been called America's top legendary speculator, and every major political and economic forecast Doug has ever made over the last 3 decades came true. His research shows a major stock crash is around the corner, and it could be triggered by a powerful group of individuals whose efforts are intended to simply sabotage Donald Trump's presidency. And the worst part? Hardworking Americans who saved diligently for retirement are the ones who will feel it the most. We've documented how Doug expects this market crash and recession to play out, how it's aimed at the Trump presidency, and who's behind it. And yes, what simple steps you should take now if you want to survive financially and live peacefully under the radar when it all goes down. To watch this free presentation, go to www.badnews2020.com and watch for free. Once again, that's www.badnews2020.com and listen to what Doug has to say. All right, now, in case you guys did not get an opportunity to check it out, yesterday on my live stream, I interviewed Mark Taylor, the Trump prophet. It was an amazing show, just simply chock full of great information. I encourage everyone to go ahead and check that out. There will be a link to that in the description below. It was just a blockbuster hour of interview. I really had a great time with Mark, and I can't wait till he comes back on the show. And then, of course, in the second hour, we had Jason Was a Gentile, debuting a new song. Jason and Severe are going to be back later this week, either Friday or Saturday, depends on when their next song is available for release. But I know that Severe has an update for everyone on his situation. He said that he got many, many kind messages and just a general outpouring of love and goodness. So I want to thank my audience specifically for doing that. All right, first here today, Joe DiGenova. He stated that the former president knew James Comey was going to blackmail the incoming president of the United States. Remember, James Baker came out just the other day stating that he was afraid that Jim Comey was going to be blackmailing the president. Now, Joe DiGenova joined Judge Jeanine on Saturday night, and they discussed the recent developments in the Spygate scandal. Joe pointed out that the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, is an empty suit and an embarrassment to the agency. Now, I'd just like to point out, maybe Joe doesn't have all the inside information. I can certainly say that from the outside, it kind of looks like that because we have Wray, pushing back on the idea of spying, maybe not wanting to use the phrase, kind of generally not seeming to be on board with everything that needs to take place in cleaning up the FBI. But maybe Chris is just, playing coy so that people don't, have a heads up on what's going to take place. Hopefully, Christopher Wray is someone we can trust, as we have been told to trust in the past. But that does not preclude the idea that Christopher Wray may be undercover for the DS. Hopefully, that's not the case, and hopefully Christopher Wray is the guy we need. Now, Judge Jeanine added that she knew the first time that he testified before Congress that he was an empty suit. And DiGenova then went on to pummel James Comey. He said, here's the thing. James Comey is talking because he is delusional. He believes nothing will happen to him. He is a very, very, very strange man. And before the segment ended, Joe DiGenova then dropped this BOMB on former President B.O. He said, remember, that briefing of President-elect Trump occurred on January 6th, and the day before, on January 5th, there was a meeting in the White House with the former president, former vice president, James Comey, Sally Yates, and Susan Rice. What were they discussing? The counterintelligence investigation against the incoming president of the United States. B.O. knew that James Comey was going to blackmail the incoming president. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this explosive conversation.
What does it tell you that Barr is as open as he is about what he sees as things that apparently don't make sense, and as out there saying clearly spying took place, and that he is starting the investigation assigning Durham before the IG report is even out?
Well, he's drawing people in, and it's having a profoundly positive effect on the investigation. You see the rats scattering, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, all James Baker particularly, all basically making public statements which are going to be used against them in grand juries. The fact that they continue to talk shows that they believe they have a problem and that their stories have never held up. The thing that's most important is that the Attorney General, who is one of the great lawyers this country has ever produced, is saying, I thought when I got here, I would be able to get all the answers to all my questions about how this got started. And by golly, I'm not only not getting the answers I'm getting are completely inadequate. Now, just ask yourself this question. He's the Attorney General of the United States. The new FBI director, Chris Wray, works for him. Does it sound strange to you that Chris Wray does not have all the answers about what went on inside the FBI? Let me just say this to America tonight. The new FBI director, Chris Wray, is an empty suit. He's an embarrassment to the United States. I'm going to stop you right there,
Joe. I knew the first time he testified before Congress he was an empty suit when he was saying, well, we don't know if we can give you what you subpoenaed. Let's both agree with it and get past this guy, Christopher Wray. I don't think he even belongs there, but that's not my call.
That's why the Attorney General doesn't have answers, because Christopher Wray has refused to investigate because he wants to protect the institution. And just remember this. He is a Comey acolyte.
Well,
he's a very, he loves James Comey.
Okay, listen, why is Comey talking? You and I both know there are so many inconsistent statements out there, and by the time everybody points a finger at everyone else, there's going to be so much to impeach him with. He's got good lawyers. I hear he's got Fitzgerald, correct? Patrick Fitzgerald. He put, a bunch of people in, Blagojevich and a few others. I'm not sure.
Well, Patrick Fitzgerald is an unethical former prosecutor. And here's the thing. James Comey is talking because he is delusional. He's a man so self-possessed, so self-righteous, but he believes that nothing will ever happen to him. He is a very, very, very strange man.
I want to throw in there, Joe, the fact that James Baker, the #1 attorney at the FBI, said that he was quite worried that it would look like Comey was trying to blackmail Trump in J. Edgar Hoover style. And he was going to, this is a top lawyer at the FBI. We were worried about the Hoover analogies. We were determined not to have such a disaster happen on our watch. He's talking about the head of the FBI, Jim Comey. Do you think he's going to testify against Comey?
Here's what everybody needs to remember. From the first moment it was revealed that Comey privately briefed Trump at the Trump Tower and told him about the dossier, but only about the salacious details.
Right.
It was clear that, in fact, Comey was blackmailing the president of the United States. And what's interesting is that nobody stopped Comey, including James Baker. And remember, that briefing of President-elect Trump occurred on January 6th. And the day before, on January 5th, there was a meeting in the White House with President Obama, Vice President Biden, James Comey, Sally Yates, and Susan Rice. And what were they discussing? The counterintelligence investigation against the incoming president of the United States. Barack Obama knew that James Comey was going to blackmail the incoming president of the United States.
No surprise there. Joe DiGenova, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
It is interesting that James Baker and other people within the FBI would not try to stop James Comey from taking on that Hooverian aspect, trying to blackmail the president, trying to put him in a position where he might want James Comey to quote-unquote protect him. Well, the thing is that none of the salacious details of that unverified dossier held any truth, so President Trump knew from the start that he had nothing to worry about. He also knew how illegal all of this was from the get-go. Remember that meeting on the 5th, that was the one that Susan Rice sent herself that email. The president wanted this to be by the book. She seemed to be covering her backside. James Baker is now doing the same thing, talking out against Comey and pretending like he cared, when in fact he did absolutely nothing to stop it from taking place. Each and every single one of these criminal conspirators know that their neck is on the chopping block, and they know what's coming next. Now, Trey Gowdy, one of my favorite former government officials, he just busted up Spygate wide open. He said the junk dossier was used 5 times and not just 4 times by the deep state. And this December transcript is key. What transcript is he talking about? He's talking about the wiretaps on George Papadopoulos. Former Representative Trey Gowdy joined Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Morning Futures this morning, and it was an explosive interview. He didn't hold back on his Spygate discussion with Maria. He said there's a lot of serious questions that need to be asked. When did the Russian probe begin? When did it become hopelessly commingled with the Trump campaign? What was the factual predicate? On and on and on. We're just going to jump straight into the clip here because Trey says it best.
Welcome back. Attorney General William Barr speaking out on the Department of Justice's push to investigate the origins of the Russia probe. Let's bring in Trey Gowdy, the former chairman of the House Oversight Committee and a Fox News contributor. It is great to see you, Trey. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Your reaction to what you heard from Bill Barr. Obviously, the Democrats are painting him now as being political and not being the honest broker that they said he was at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think they like the old AG either. They're not going to like whoever replaces Bill Barr. There are a lot of serious questions that need to be asked. When did the Russia probe begin? When did it become hopelessly commingled with the Trump campaign? What was the factual predicate? Where are the transcripts, if any, exist between the informants and the telephone calls to George Papadopoulos? Why the defensive briefing so inadequate of President Trump? Why didn't you do a follow-up defensive briefing? That doesn't even get to the whole FISA story in the fall. That's just the spring and summer of 2016. There are lots of questions, and I hope Bill Barr finds someone who is skilled enough to answer them.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. The FBI agents' conversations with George Papadopoulos is because when an FBI agent sends in informants to someone they're looking at, typically those conversations are recorded, right? Those people are wired.
Yeah, I mean, if the Bureau is going to send an informant in, the informant's going to be wired. And if the Bureau is monitoring telephone calls, there's going to be a transcript of that. And some of us have been fortunate enough to know whether or not those transcripts exist, but they haven't been made public. And I think one in particular it has the potential to actually persuade people. Very little on this Russia probe, I'm afraid, is going to persuade people who hate Trump or who love Trump. But there is some information in these transcripts that I think has the potential to be a game changer if it's ever made public.
You say that's exculpatory evidence. And when people see that, they're going to say, wait, why wasn't this presented to the court earlier?
Yeah, Johnny Ratcliffe is rightfully exercised over the obligations that the government has to tell the whole truth to a court when you are seeking permission to spy or do surveillance on an American. And part of that includes the responsibility of providing exculpatory information or information that tends to show the person did not do something wrong. If you have exculpatory information and you don't share it with the court, That ain't good. I've seen it. Johnny's seen it. I'd love for your viewers to see it.
All right, so that's the transcripts of FBI agents and George Papadopoulos. We're going to be on the lookout for that. Take me back to an email that Jim Comey wrote to his upper echelon staff. This is also considered classified, but you've seen it. What can you tell us about it?
Well, take a half step back. I mean, people use the word dossier and it has such an official sound to it. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. It's a series of rank hearsay compilations put together by an FBI source who was later defrocked, paid for by the Democrat National Committee. And oh, by the way, Christopher Steele hated Donald Trump, too. So we can call it a dossier. It sounds official. It's really something the National Enquirer would blush if they printed. So we know that it was used 4 times by the United States government. What we're trying to figure out is whether or not it was used a 5th time in the intelligence assessment. And you got Brennan, Clapper, and Comey, all 3 who know full well whether or not it was used in the intelligence assessment, but they're giving you different versions.
Right.
So there is information that exists in December of 2016, and I hope anyone who has access to it, Senator Burr, Devin, whoever is open-minded, go look at that. And I think it will help you understand whether or not that dossier, that unverified hearsay, was used for 5 times or just 4 times by the United States government. It's pretty bad if it was just 4 times. It's really bad if it was 5.
Jim Comey calls it the crown material. Trey Gowdy, it's good to see you. Thanks very much.
What an amazing piece of information. A 5th time that this fake and phony dossier was used to get an illegitimate warrant from the FISA court makes you wonder, how much further does this go? Are we ever going to get the full story? This withholding of exculpatory evidence is probably going to be what really blows this wide open for the people in America who have not yet come to the realization that our government committed extremely questionable actions. Our president did nothing. The past former administration used illegitimate tools and procedures, and they tried to entrap people in ways that they have yet to fully understand. The information brought to us today by Trey Gowdy truly is a revelation, and hopefully soon we will see that transcript he's talking about. Thank God John Ratcliffe is on the trail. Now, speaking of the co-conspirators, remember the deep state corrupt couple Bruce and Nellie Ohr? Well, they've been caught in yet another lie. Bruce and Nellie Ohr are in the middle of the deep state's attempted coup to remove President Trump from office. They are perhaps deep state's most corrupt couple. We've caught them in another lie. The Ohrs are in a world of trouble due to their efforts to remove President Trump from office, and Nellie is a key player in that Spygate scandal. In August of 2018, we posted the ties to Nellie Ohr, what she has with the deep state. According to Zero Hedge, the head of opposition research firm Fusion GPS admitted in December 2017 in a court filing that his firm paid the wife of senior Justice Department official Bruce Ohr to help dig up damaging information on then-candidate Donald Trump. That was Glenn Simpson, the co-founder of GPS. He filed the signed declaration in a D.C. court the week after, affirming that Nellie Ohr, wife of demoted DOJ official Bruce Ohr, was contracted by Fusion through the summer and fall of 2016 to help our company with its research and analysis of Mr. Trump, according to the filing. The House Intelligence Committee determined that in November 2016, Simpson met with Bruce Ohr shortly after the election to discuss their findings regarding Russia and Trump. Bruce Ohr lost his senior-level position at the DOJ as Associate Deputy Attorney General after his meetings with Simpson and British spy Christopher Steele, who assembled the Trump-Russia dossier, were discovered. And why would Fusion GPS hire Nellie Ohr? Well, aside from the obvious connection to her DOJ husband, who was in a position to provide Fusion GPS with information on Trump gathered by U.S. intelligence agencies, Nellie Ohr also represented the Clowns in America's Open Source Works group in a 2010 expert working group report on international organized crime, along with Bruce Ohr and Glenn Simpson both. The connections between Nellie Ohr and the Spygate scandal were hidden at a distance for months. As previously noted at the Gateway Pundit, Nellie Orr is a communist sympathizer connected to Russia as well as a corrupt never-Trumper. Author Diana West at the American Spectator posted an article on Nellie Orr, who they call the dossier spying scandal's woman in the middle. To one side of Orr, there is the Fusion GPS team, including fellow contractor Christopher Steele. To the other, there is husband Bruce Orr, who, until his dossier-related demotion, was the number 4 man at the Department of Justice and a key contact there for Steele. As central as Nellie Orr's placement is, her role in the creation of the dossier remains undefined. For example, the House Intelligence Committee memo on related matters vaguely tells us that Nellie Orr was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. The memo adds that Bruce Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research. Senator Lindsey Graham more sensationally told Fox News that Nellie Orr did the research for Mr. Steele, but details remain scarce. What's more revealing about Nellie Orr is the men in her life were protecting her and hiding her involvement in the Russia scandal. Notably, the dossier men in her life have tried to shield Orr from public scrutiny, even at professional risk. Her husband, as the Daily Caller News Foundation reports, failed to disclose his wife's employment for Fusion GPS and seek the appropriate conflict of interest waiver, which may have been an important factor in his demotion from Associate Deputy Attorney General last year. Under Senate and House questioning, Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson consistently failed to disclose Nellie Orr's existence as one of his firm's paid Russian experts, let alone that he hired her for the red-hot DNC Clinton campaign Trump-Russia project. Even Christopher Steele may have tried to keep Nellie Orr undercover. Steele, put forth as the dossier author ever since its January 2017 publication in BuzzFeed, does not appear to have led on to his many media and political contacts that he had dossier assistance from at least 2 fellow Fusion GPS Russian experts. That would be Nellie Orr and Edward Baumgartner. Baumgartner, interestingly, was a Russian history major at Vassar in the 1990s when Nellie Orr taught Russian history there. President Trump's attorney, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, outed former Obama Clowns in America director John Brennan as the man in charge of Spygate. Rudy claims Brennan orchestrated the Spygate scandal and was the quarterback. The men in Nellie's life did all they could to prevent Nellie Orr from being outed by being involved in the dossier because she has links to the clowns and therefore to Brennan. If Brennan is outed as the quarterback of the dossier scandal, then by association, so is his boss, former President B.O. Earlier this month, Nellie Orr was criminally referred to the Justice Department concerning her congressional testimony. Boom. A week ago, an email from the State Department's Kathleen Kvelic to Bruce Orr was uncovered. And remember, that email provided evidence that the State Department had met with Steele, and then she immediately emailed Orr to tell him that Steele had lied. He included erroneous evidence in the information he shared. He hated candidate Donald Trump and desperately wanted to get the fraudulent data he had to the press, and he already had done so as of that date. In spite of this, the FBI and DOJ requested a warrant to spy on President Trump through a FISA warrant on Carter Page using that bogus data. Orr testified that he saw his job as passing information to the FBI, and that's it. Now, from the testimony, Mr. Orr said, "I don't know exactly what the FBI had access to, and I know Glenn Simpson was also gathering information. So more information is better. The FBI is in a position to decide whether the information is useful or credible. My job as I saw it was just to get the information over there and let them figure it out." Orr followed up this claim with more of the same. He said, "I don't recall what I just said, but yeah, what I think maybe I misspoke. What I said is that I didn't think my superiors in the Deputy Attorney General's office would be able to act on that information because they're not." And then Mark Meadows butts in, "But you could?" Orr responds, "I could pass it to the FBI." Mr. Meadows says, "You could act on it, but they couldn't?" Mr. Orr says, "I could pass it on to the FBI. All they could do is pass it on to the FBI." But based on an email unearthed by Judicial Watch, Orr contradicts the above claim. Orr states that he had a team of individuals who met with Kvelic and notes that he hopes they get something going. Bruce says to Kathy here in this email, "Thank you for taking the time to meet with us. I really hope we can get something going here. This is very interesting. I may have heard about him from Tom Firestone as well, but I can't recall for certain. We will take another look at this. Thank you again, and look forward to seeing everyone at the next meeting." Now, Kathleen responds, "Bruce, thanks so much for coming by. It was very helpful to hear about the work the OCDETF is doing, and we look forward to staying in touch." Now, Kathleen responds there. She's saying, thank you for sharing this information from your team. Orr was not simply passing information to the FBI. Bruce Orr was in on it. Orr also lies about the person that he may have heard of. Based on the topic, the individual was likely Christopher Steele or Glenn Simpson, and Steele had worked with both individuals in the past. Remember, Steele and Orr were tight friends. They had lunch and breakfast together on a regular basis. Orr should have no problem identifying Steele, as both him and Nellie knew and worked with Steele. Remember, Steele is the brainchild behind the FIFA investigation, which Bruce prosecuted. Also, Glenn Simpson's wife, Mary Jacoby, founded Maine Justice in 2009, a company specializing in paid corruption research and reporting. She has been the chief executive at Fusion GPS since 2010. Jacoby also worked as a reporter for organizations such as GIR and Law Business Research, which later purchased Maine Justice in 2015. While at Maine Justice, she worked with Bruce Orr and, in fact, nominated his FIFA investigation for the GIR Anti-Corruption Award. That's the Global Investigations Review Anti-Corruption Award. The Orrs knew Steele and Simpson well. They were all corrupt and all in on an attempt to illegally remove the President of the United States from office. Striking information here, the fact that Bruce Orr trying to pretend that he does not know Christopher Steele, when in fact we've got lots and lots of evidence showing that not only did they know each other, but they were thick as thieves. Very tight, had worked together on many occasions previously. So why would he want to lie to Kathleen Kvelic about it? Well, Kathleen Kvelic had already said she thought Steele was lying. Bruce desperately wanted to help Steele get the information through the Justice Department into the FBI, and of course, Bruce Orr did not like Donald Trump either. He pretended that he wanted to warn people about Steele's bias, but it doesn't seem that it went too far. This is just another example of how these people were working together in concert, trying to hide the fact from other people around them that they were already in contact and already plotting to overthrow the incoming president. This is enormous. Huge news. This is huge news. Now, Democrats in the current administration, not only Democrats in the current administration, are striking out at Bill Barr, but we've got Eric Holder, former AG, also viciously attacking him for launching this massive investigation into Spygate, saying that he's not fit to lead the DOJ. Well, I beg to differ, Mr. Holder. BO's corrupt officials are all lashing out at Attorney General Bill Barr because he launched this massive investigation into the origins of Spygate. The corrupt former Attorney General Eric Holder lashed out at Bill Barr this weekend. Holder accused Barr of protecting President Trump and asserted that the AG started his probe of the Intel and FBI for political reasons. He's not fit to lead the DOJ, Holder said. Holder also said AG Barr has deliberately misrepresented the Mueller report. Not true. He has stated examinations of the conduct of Intel FBI personnel without a predicate for political reasons. He is protecting the president. He does not stand up for the good people he leads. He is not fit to lead the DOJ. Eric Holder, does this mean that you believe that if the agency which you lead breaks the rules, breaks the law, and tries to entrap people into situations that they had nothing to do with, that you're just supposed to sit idly by and watch it happen? Perhaps that's because it happened on your watch, and that's exactly what you did. I'd like to think, though, that Eric Holder actually had much more to do with the illegal things that happened under his Justice Department watch. Bill Barr is simply trying to uphold the rule of law. Attorney General Barr launched a sweeping investigation into Spygate and stunned the Democrat media complex when it was revealed he appointed U.S. Attorney John Durham to probe abuses at the highest level of BO's intel and law enforcement agencies. It was recently revealed Barr's investigation into Spygate is much broader than previously known. We know that Barr and Durham are working closely with Clowns in America director Gina Haspel, the director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, and the FBI director Christopher Wray on surveillance issues related to the 2016 Trump campaign. This suggests a broader interagency effort is underway. This is exactly what we need, because each of these agencies had a part to play in this coup plotting, and without getting to the bottom of each and every piece, there's absolutely no way we are going to get the truth. Bill Barr said over the weekend in the interview with Fox News that he thought he would come in, he would get the information, but apparently they have decided to stonewall him. No one has a good answer, because they know that along the way there were many, many rules broken, many procedures that were not followed properly, an absolutely unpredicated investigation investigation, counterintelligence investigation into an incoming president. This is unheard of. Or perhaps it's just unheard of because it's never been brought to the surface before. I think that there has been an ongoing level of corruption in many agencies within the United States government, and it is only because of the election of Donald Trump and the appointment of honest law-abiding men and women under him that we are beginning to see how deep this corruption goes. The former officials from the Obama administration, Holder to Comey, Brennan, and Clapper, they've gone into overdrive, attacking Barr on Twitter and in various media appearances because they know they are in serious trouble. Former AG Eric Holder ran the illegal GUN running operation, Fast and Furious for those who have short memories, and was held in criminal contempt of Congress, so he's got no room to speak on Barr's leadership. Once again, Eric Holder oversaw an illegal operation which brought these weapons into the hands of foreign narcotics dealers. This one instance right here at the heart of it is why Eric Holder has got absolutely no room to talk regarding anything that this current administration or this current AG chooses to do. I certainly hope that by doing this investigation, it leads back and it allows for former Attorney General Eric Holder to see justice swing around his way. And finally, another former clown officer has been sentenced to prison for espionage. This gentleman's name was Kevin Patrick Mallory. He was 62 years old, living in Leesburg, Virginia. He was sentenced on Friday the 17th to 20 years in prison, to be followed by 5 years of supervised release after being convicted under the Espionage Act for conspiracy to transmit national defense information to an agent of the People's Republic of China. This is just another instance. How many have we had recently? People who were former intelligence officers passing information to China. It just goes to show the problem is not Russia. The problem is China. They have wanted us to look as far away from China as we possibly could because they are all in the same boat, compromising our national security by passing information to China and selling out our own people. Now, Assistant Attorney General John Demers says this case is one in an alarming trend of former U.S. intelligence officers being targeted by China and betraying their country and colleagues. This sentence, together with the recent guilty pleas of Ron Hansen in Utah and Jerry Lee in Virginia, deliver the stern message that our former intelligence officers have no business partnering with the Chinese or any other adversarial foreign intelligence service. Mallory not only put our country at great risk, but he endangered the lives of specific human assets who put their own safety at risk for our national defense. There are few crimes in this country more serious than espionage, and this office has a long history of holding accountable those who betray our country. As the Chinese continue to attempt to identify and recruit current and former members of the United States intelligence community, those individuals should remain vigilant and report any suspicious activity to the appropriate security officials. This case should send a message to anyone violating the public's trust and compromising our national security by disclosing classified information. We will remain steadfast and dogged in pursuit of these challenging but critical national security cases. Well, we have approximately 81 drops that include either China in the text of the drop or China as a subject in the title of the drop itself. Why has China been lifted up over these many decades and allowed to prosper while America has not? I think that obviously we have an infiltration problem with Chinese and the Chinese intelligence services in our government. It's often posed as the idea of a communist problem, but, the Chinese are not particularly communist anymore, more authoritarian. So I think that this is something that really needs to be dealt with. President Trump is making great strides working with the Chinese government, even if he has to do it through the tool of tariffs. It's still making China realize who we are and not to mess with us. I hope that the DOJ continues to locate and uncover people who are willing to sell out our country to the Chinese because it's a major problem. I think that's all I've got for you today, everyone. I want to thank you for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.